Thank you for stopping by. This is your political activist, Jeffrey Weiss, working to keep you informed of local and world events. Each week, I'll be reading from one of my books. I write mostly political thrillers. My books are fiction based on fact. I do not write simply to entertain readers. My books inform, inspire, change hearts and minds. You can use the same link posted to see all my books, which are available on Amazon. Today we are reading from Code 6, North of the DMZ. To review, Paul Decker, Delta Force Code 6 operative, has gathered a team to go into North Korea to liberate the internment camps. His team consists of himself, arms dealer Bora Timoshenko, and 4 North Koreans who recently escaped from the camps. Chapter 1, the team is going over their plan from their base, a small apartment in South Korea owned by Mi-hai. Chapter 2 switches to the White House that is dealing with escalating tensions at the border between North and South Korea. Chapter 3, the team is on a plane traveling from Seoul, South Korea to Vladivostok, Russia, where they will begin their journey to North Korea. We pick up at Chapter 4, the People's Congress, Pyongyang, North Korea. Pyongyang, the capital of North Korea, was located on the Taedong River and had a population of 3.25 million. After slow progress through the Dark Ages, Pyongyang was conquered by the Japanese in the 16th century, then overrun by the Manchus early in the 17th century. After the invaders left, Pyongyang closed to the outside world for nearly 3 centuries. In 1945, the Soviet Army entered Pyongyang, and in 1948, it became the de facto capital of the Democratic People's Republic of North Korea. In 1950, Pyongyang aimed to recapture Seoul, but instead was badly damaged in the Korean conflict. After the war, the city was rebuilt with Soviet aid. Kim Jong-un sat at the head of the huge mahogany table surrounded by his minions, underlings, subservients, and petty bourgeois-esque lackeys. He was somewhere between pudgy and obese, with cheeks that looked like they were perpetually stuffed with food. He had 3 chins, bad teeth, a pouty mouth, hair like Mo Howard of the Three Stooges, and looked like he would rather be anywhere but where he was at the moment. Yet he was also vindictive, ruthless, and vengeful. Those who misjudged him and dismissed him as a figurehead and a puppet were now laboring in the camps or had become fodder for the guard dogs. He quickly tired of the long-winded diatribes of the admirals and generals and wondered when dinner would be served, although in fact the lunch dishes had just been cleared. Finally, fed up with the archaic pace at which the old generals moved, Jong-un shoved his chair back 2 feet from the table and stood. He would show these men what a real leader sounded like, what a man of action looked like. The North Korean People's Republic must prevail. We will attack the forces aligned against us and wipe them off the face of the earth, he said, slamming his fist down hard enough to upset the small glasses of chai tea. However, seated around the table were the men who really ran North Korea. There was Vice Marshal Ring Young-ho, Chief of the General Staff in Pyongyang, Chang Sung-taek, Vice Chairman of the National Defense Commission, the man who most believed was the power behind the throne and who called the shots, and finally Park Si-bung, Second Economic Committee Chairman, who was considered to be first among equals. Fools, Sung-taek whispered to the others. Leftover kitchen food is given to the pigs, Sung. Continue on that path, and you will soon be in one of the Americans' secret camps, hanging from the wall by hooks and living on a diet of gruel, Young-ho whispered in return. Your verbosity and rhetoric will get us wiped off the face of the earth, Si-bung said aloud. You do not understand the situation in America. The country is ruled by the generals, and they are looking for any opportunity to declare war. Our missile program is a match for any nation on Earth, Jong-un insisted. Just one of their submarines carries 100 times more destructive power than all our missiles combined, Young-ho replied. It will be my decision, not yours, Jong-un insisted. Maybe we should ship you to one of your own camps, Sin-take whispered to the others. Just think how much better you would look after eating pig slop, 2 grains of rice, and half a rat each day for a few years. Yes, Young-ho agreed, under his breath. Wouldn't it be nice if you could see your dick again without using a mirror? You should remind yourself who is the supreme ruler of North Korea, the spiritual leader of the people, the anointed one, Jong-un declared. The only throne you rule is the toilet which you sit on, Saban whispered to the others. We must attack the South, Jong-un insisted. It is our destiny to reunite the peninsula. The only thing you attack is the lamb chops at dinner, you buffoon, Sun-take said, whispering to the others. Yes, and please do something about your passing gas, or we will soon use masks to hold our meeting, Sun-take said to the others under his breath. It's my grandfather's wish, glorious leader Kim Il-sung, that the North and South shall be reunited. Sun-take laughed under his breath and said to the others, Your grandfather, Kim Sung-ju, a poor dirt farmer who stole the name Kim Il-sung from an early leader of the Korean resistance. When the Soviets invaded North Korea in 1945, they chose Kim and put him in charge of the puppet government. You see? All lies. You, your father, grandfather, lying, thieving, inbred morons incapable of finding their asses without a map, Sun-take said, whispering to the others. The others could not help laughing, which Jong-un took as a sign of disrespect. You simply do not know that military strategy is a game of chess, and I was taught by the master, my father Kim Jong-il. I fanned the flames of war, threatened to attack the South and Japan and the United States, then at the last minute express a willingness to sit down at the negotiating table at Panmunjom. Instead of attacking us, they will reward our belligerents. The Red Cross and World Food Bank and others bestow gifts on us for promises to halt our nuclear program. We give them nothing and get millions of tons of rice, which we sell to China to buy luxuries. And then there is the oil and fertilizer for our factories and farms. Free. All for the cost of rhetoric. Kim Jong-un said. And if you miscalculate, Sun-take asked, then what? America will do nothing, Jong-un retaliated. Look what I have done and gotten away with. Bombing one of the South Islands, destroying a frigate, killing their soldiers. Young-ho sniggered, then said to the others in a whisper, when, not if, America launches an attack, you, all of us, will be sitting in the camps where you, your father and grandfather, have exploited millions of our brothers and sisters for generations. Don't you see? Jong-un said. They are afraid and they will grant our every wish just by our willingness to sit down at the peace table. This is not chess, it is politics, Park Si-bang argued aloud. Something your grandfather and father practiced well, after learning the intricacies for decades. Young-ho whispered, It is the military that built North Korea into a great military power, while you are still sucking on your mother's teat. Se-bang said aloud, Think about what you have to lose, your car, homes, yachts, girlfriends. You have much to learn from me, Jong-un assured. You should heed my words. It is because of the Kims that you are not planting corn in your backyards. Young Kim Jong-un fell into the trap many other leaders found themselves in. He began to believe the hype about himself, believe he could rule the country better on his own. The generals were holding back North Korea and himself from greater glory. His ego was expanding faster than the opportunities to deploy it. A clash of titanic wills was simmering just below the surface. The old guard had misjudged him, dismissed him as a puppet, a figurehead. Soon, they would see just how compliant he was. "I am leaving now," Jong-un said. "When I come back, you will have changed your attitudes or you will be dismissed." And with that, Kim Jong-un turned to leave the room. But he only took a few steps before he turned back and said, "Maybe my grandfather and father put up with you, but you will only remain in your positions as long as you carry out my orders. Disobey, and we'll see to your reassignments in the camps." Chapter 5. The Situation Room, White House, Washington, D.C. The president sat surrounded by his national security team with one important addition, a man speaking in hushed tones to the president while the others waited anxiously. The gentleman in discussion with Hardesty was dressed in a conservative three-piece suit with red tie and matching pocket handkerchief. He was older, but carried himself with panache. There was an air of dignity about him, a man who could surely charm the knickers off a nun. The two men broke apart cordially. The president showed his guest great respect. "Ladies and gentlemen," Hardesty addressed the room, "may I present to you Douglas Stevens, our ambassador to China. He has quite a bit to share with us today that relates directly with the situation in North Korea." "Mr. Stevens," Hardesty said, turning the floor over to the ambassador. "Thank you, Mr. President," Douglas said, and addressed the room. There's been a great deal of in the news lately about what role China should be playing in the North Korean scenario. But using such pejorative terms as very disappointed and stepping up to the plate do not help anyone, least of all the U.S. The Asian culture works subtly, not in the brutish, heavy-handed manner of American politics. China is applying pressure on North Korea, and it holds Kim Jong-un in even lower esteem than it did his father, Kim Jong-il. China signed on to the UN Security Council edict to tighten sanctions against North Korea's rocket launch, then after a nuclear test. The ambassador walked around the room, stopping at each chair to engage everyone. China once saw North Korea as a buffer state, a wedge between themselves and the U.S., but now they see North Korea as having the potential to destabilize the entire region and have a catastrophic effect on trade. Several of the national security team nodded their approval of the ambassador's perceptions. Seeing their interest, Michael quickly picked up on the thread of his conversation. North Korea has brought China and America closer than ever before, and North Korea needs China's hard currency since the yuan is depreciating at double-digit figures a month and all but becoming worthless. "So, we cut off the Kim regime's access to cash," Frank suggested. "That's too extreme," Douglas insisted. "If we do that, it might go Pyongyang to start a war on the peninsula." "If not that, then what?" Zach asked. "We need to cultivate our relationship with China, not infuriate them," Douglas replied. "With their support, we can calm North Korea down until either Kim Jong-un solidifies his relationship with the generals and returns to a more moderate stance, or until he is replaced by a more rational person, which, by the way, is not out of the realm of possibility." "How do we get China's cooperation?" Hardesty asked. "We have a lot of bargaining chips to use in order to get their support in this," Douglas asserted. "The Asian shift and the territorial claims between China and the Philippines, Japan, and Vietnam are just two. We could act as a moderator rather than saying if China moves aggressively to convert those islands, that, by the way, are worthless in and of themselves, we will come to the defense of our allies. That sounds a lot like a threat to me, Mr. President. Instead of insisting on an all-or-nothing policy in regards to these issues," Douglas went on, "we can use our position to bring the parties to the table and reach a compromise that allows for further dialogue with China." "And how do we set mutually beneficial goals when China still wants North Korea to remain as a buffer and we want North Korea gone?" Sharon questioned. "If North Korea implodes, then millions of people will flood into China, causing a nightmare for the Chinese," Douglas responded. "And at the same time, they'll flood into South Korea, It's been estimated that the cost to South Korea will be $2.5 trillion to integrate the North. That is impossible. So the answer is, Sharon pressed, work with China to keep the pressure on North Korea. Sanctions, trade, lack of access to hard currency, Douglas replied. Market forces will come into play and change can occur from within. How long? Arthur asked impatiently. Every day allows North Korea to shift more of its forces to the south and get that much closer to being able to launch a nuclear weapon. Douglas came to a halt at the head of the table, stopping to consider the question. Then, after a drawn-out moment, said, not nearly as long as it would take to rebuild South Korea after a full frontal attack that might kill several million people and turn Seoul into Dresden. Chapter 6. Airbus 320, 36,000 feet, Seoul to Vladivostok. Hai and Paul sat awake, restless while the others slept. Hai flipped through the pages of the in-flight magazine, a look of amazement on her face. What she thought of luxuries that bored people after owning them for just a few hours left Paul wondering. Paul studied her. She was a delicate creature. Had it not been for her sad eyes and lips stretched thin with tension, she might have graced the pages of the magazine she was reading. It's hard for me to ask, Paul began, but I need to know the mindset of the prisoners. I'm going to be asking those physically capable to fight alongside with us. Is that even possible for people who have been locked away and cut off from the world for years? What keeps people going in the camps? Dreams? Loved ones? Hai lowered the magazine, then carefully returned it to the seat pocket. She looked up at Paul, trying to see something in his eyes, trying to understand his motivation. Are you really interested or just asking to satisfy your curiosity? Maybe both, Paul admitted. Hai took an uncomfortable minute, deciding what to say. Very well, she accepted. There are no dreams in the camps. There are no loved ones. There is no love. There is no outside. There is only day-to-day survival. Everything is taken away by the total control exercised by the guards. They use fear and subjugation and food as a way to manipulate the body and mind. All hope, all thoughts of life before or after are gone. To survive, all human qualities are abandoned. Morals, love, concern for others, Hai continued. There are only competitors for food, for a place closer to the coal fire to sleep and stay warm, to snitch on other prisoners in order to gain more food or not be punished oneself. I'm sorry for what you've gone through, Paul said. I fought for freedom for others, but they hadn't lost their hope or ability to aid in their own fight. I'm saddened for the people in the North Korean prison camps, but I'm also worried about their ability to help in our cause. There are many who will be so weak, physically and mentally, they will not be able to fight or make the arduous journey to China. They will have to remain in the camps and fend for themselves. And if we can't overthrow the regime, what becomes of them? Paul asked. And then they will be no worse off than before. Maybe the taste of freedom will strengthen them in some way, Hai said, but I don't know if experiencing a moment of freedom is worse than not being reminded of what it feels like. Sun and Day seem to think differently than you, Paul suggested. How do you mean? I asked. They talked about the hope they held on to in the camp, talked about the things they had done, the experiences they had before they were imprisoned. There was a great difference between prisoners who arrived from the outside and those born in the camps or taken there at a very early age, Hai explained. Outsiders are able to recall beauty and joy and family and love. Those positive memories keep some alive even while enduring a nightmare. The flight attendant came by with their coffees. Paul and Hai sat back in their seats to make room. Only then did they realize how closely they had been sitting to one another. Will there be anything else, sir? The stewardess asked, deferring to Paul. Before answering, Paul looked at Hai, who shook her head. We're good. Yes, sir, she said, then quickly moved away. Hy picked up her cup to take a sip of the coffee. Paul noticed her shaking hands. He resisted the urge to reach out and cup Hy's hands in his own. I've never lost hope because I had no hope to lose, no past to mourn, no pride to defend, Hy said. I did not find it degrading to lick soup off the dirty floor, or wrong to betray a friend in order to gain more food. It was always only about food, Hy went on. I was driven. Freedom was just another word for meat. They say people usually don't live longer than 7 years in the camp, Paul said. You were there for more than twice that long. I was, in a way, saved by my beauty, she said, trying to find a note on which to cut the conversation short. In a way? Paul asked. Hy took another look at Paul, trying to determine how much she wanted to share. The pain welling up inside made its way to the surface. I have never told anyone what happened to me in prison. You don't have to say any more. I didn't mean to. No, it's not for you that I need to speak. It is for me. It has been festering inside me for 12 years in the camps and 9 months since I escaped, Hy said. Being a beautiful woman draws the attention of the guards, who are given license for rape or to kill any prisoner they want. Even worse, there is a quota. If they don't kill a certain number each month, they are punished. They may be reassigned to a remote post along the Chinese border, or worse. Hy became lost in thought. Paul didn't move a muscle. An inordinate amount of time went by without a word, or a breath, or eye contact. I was raped, she whispered. Paul sat, stunned in silence, never so much at a loss for words. Constantly. Oh, Paul said, by many men. That's horrible, Paul admitted. Hy stopped to think before speaking again. No, horror is what came after, she said. Worse? Paul questioned, unable to imagine worse. You cannot imagine things more horrible than that? That's funny. To be raped was the easiest part. You see, if a woman gives birth in the camp without a conjoining arrangement by the officers, then both the mother and the baby are killed. But you didn't die, Paul said. I self-aborted 6 times at the camps by eating carrot seed soup, having other women punch me in the stomach, and force a wire hanger up my vagina and stabbing the baby. Now I cannot even have a child if I want to. I don't even know if I can feel physical love anymore. I am 25 years old and I want a family. They took everything from me. Everything. Paul began to speak, but the best he could do was stare wide-eyed at a woman who exhibited more courage than hardened men he went into battle with. Now I can see why you want to kill them, Paul said to himself, but did not say out loud. Sometimes I try to laugh and cry like other people, just to see what it feels like, Hy said, laughing through her tears. I don't know what to say. I'm sorry, Paul said. I wish I could do more. The look in her eyes told the story better than any words ever could. If you want to help, then let me kill them. We're here to save people, not kill people. We'll try to convince the guards to join us rather than kill them. They might be the difference between success and failure on this mission. I'm not going to let revenge stop us from accomplishing all that we are going there to do. That seemed to calm Hy down. Anxious to change the subject and relieve Hy of the obligation to talk more about her experiences in the camp, Paul asked, who determines which prisoner goes to the camp and for how long? Is it based on their crime or age? No, that is not how the system works at all, Hy said. Then how? People only rarely go to prison for crimes. They go to prison based on the family that they were born into. You see, Great Leader Kim Il-sung classified the entire North Korean society, segregating the population based on the background of their parents and grandparents. Hy stopped to sip on her coffee. She managed a partial smile that, under the circumstances, was more than Paul could hope for. She sat her cup down and went on. North Korea calls itself the workers' paradise. But even as it speaks of the communist ideal of equality, it invented the most rigid caste system, Hai explained. There are three broad classes and many subclasses. The highest level is the core class. These people can obtain jobs in the government, the party, and intelligence services. People in this class came from farm workers, families of soldiers killed in the Korean War, and battles against the Japanese. The next level is the neutral class, which includes soldiers who have not fought in wars, technicians, and teachers, Hai continued. At the bottom is the hostile class, with whose members are to of subjected suspected of opposing the government. Former property owners, relatives of those who have fled to South Korea, and Christians. Your class determines where you can live and what job you can have. But I learned something from talking to the others in the camp. What was that? Paul questioned, anxious to know but reluctant to ask, lest his senses and sensibilities be hit by the force of a hurricane. The caste system is just an excuse for slave labor. You see, since the Soviet Union and South Korea stopped sending oil and grain and spare parts for machinery, most production in North Korea has stopped. The largest source of income for the state comes from the products produced in the factories at the camps. They make shoes, clothes, mine coal, raise pigs, make paper, glass, limestone, even bicycles. I learned that many of these things went to China, where they are repackaged and sold to Western countries. That is why I think China does not prosecute North Korea like the rest of the world does. They make millions of dollars off slave labor. No decent country would buy these things if they knew they were made in prison camps. The workers are fed just enough calories so they can produce products. The state knows exactly how much to feed these people to keep them alive and exactly how many will die in a certain amount of time. The intelligence services arrest the same number of people to replace those that are killed or die. But they're not all killed, Paul insisted. Semantics. Starved to death, worked to death, beaten, frozen, burned. Arose by any other name. So you see, it doesn't matter what you do if you come from the lower class. They will arrest you and you will die in the camps because what is produced is a major source of revenue for the state. That's worse than I could even imagine, and a million times worse than the outside world knows, Paul said. Then you will appreciate what the guards are taught. And that is, Paul asked, if they treat the prisoners as human beings, then they will become prisoners themselves. There is an incentive program in place so that if guards catch prisoners trying to escape, they can win admission to college. Ambitious guards help prisoners plan escapes, then shoot them before they reach the fences. So, if the only source of revenue for the state is from the sale of prison goods, how do the elite live so well? This is through counterfeit money, insurance frauds, methamphetamine production, and using Red Cross and other donations to buy themselves luxury rather than give to the poor for whom it was intended. It is said that the Kim family has 8 country homes with movie theaters, indoor pools, bowling alleys, racehorse stables, and a private train station and yachts. But knowing all this, you chose to go back in with me and risk your life, Paul questioned. Yes, I will explain why. For years, human rights groups have tried to focus attention on the prisons. But because so few have escaped and even fewer speak English, the story has not yet reached many ears. If there is a mass escape, then maybe there will be such outrage that the world will have to act. I understand. A little better, Paul admitted, but I could never say with certainty. I am grateful you allowed me to speak of these things, Hai said. But what about you? You are a soldier, Paul Decker. You have been in many battles, maybe even captured and tortured. Sure, but it's nothing like what you've gone through, Paul said, trying to deflect attention away from his story. And you have no need to speak of these things, Hai inquired. Yeah, I was captured and tortured, but it was different for me. In what way? Hai asked. I enjoyed it. This is true? I asked in disbelief. I don't think I can talk about it. I've got to keep focused on the mission. I can't let anything get between me and that. Would it not help to share your experiences? I challenged. I know that it has helped me. Paul gave it thought. How could he not answer High's questions when she had answered his? He nodded. I left dozens of men behind on missions that went bad. Men die in battle all the time, High said. They weren't men, they were boys. They looked to me as their protector, the man that was going to bring them back so they could rejoin their families. They just became statistics. The rush of bad memories hit him like a wave of nausea. When I got captured, they tortured me. But it wasn't enough. I begged them to do more. I deserved more. They thought I was crazy and gave up on me. I goaded them, but it didn't do any good. Why would you do that? I asked. Because they didn't all die due to the enemy, Paul admitted. I don't understand, she said. I drink. It affects my decisions. It costs men their lives. Everyone has bad habits. Maybe your drinking helped to calm your nerves and let you make better choices. Thanks, but I feel better when I take the blame. It seems unhappiness is very important to you, I decided. Is it that obvious? Paul replied with a sarcastic laugh. I think we both have ghosts in our closets. How do you get through each day? Paul asked, trying to deflect the conversation back to High like it was a ping pong game. Thoughts of revenge, staying alive at least as long to kill enough of them as possible. Hate can be liberating. It is a survival technique for the present and a dream for the future. High picked up her cup of coffee, blew on it, took a tentative sip, and set it back down. How about you, Paul Decker? How do you deal with the pain? My technique is to drink until I black out, not for the thrill, but as an attack on my memory. I can see your logic, but death is better, High said. Death would be the end of sad memories, the end of regrets. Yeah, Paul said, so as not to argue, but he didn't accept her view. Maybe we can rid ourselves of the ghosts on this mission, I suggested. For now, Paul said, let's just try to get back alive. Thank you for listening. I'll be reading a few chapters each week, uh, and so please use the link to check out my website and books, and we'll return to the articles tomorrow. Thank you very much.